Hey, welcome back to the Art of SBA Lending. Today on the podcast, we sit down again with the legend, Bruce Marks, SVP at First Bank of the Lake, big producer in our industry. And we sat down to cover a wide variety of topics, all centered around the BDO position, Business Development Officer. We talked about why BDOs might want to consider saying no more, BDO reputation, BDO write-ups. By the way, all of Bruce's BDOs on his team last year exceeded goal. So it sounds like he's doing something right. We should probably listen. So without further ado, let's get on with the show.
So I've been in lending for 12 years, and you guys know I'm all about speed. So I'm going to give all you BDOs out there a pro tip. One of the biggest cogs in the process is getting the borrower to send you the underwriting package. And the last items that they send are always the business plan and projections because it's the most time intensive. So they save it for last. But that delays the process. The small business owners I know, they don't want to sit in front of their computer all day. They want to go run their business. And so that's why I send them to rapid business plans right out of the gate. They make it easy for entrepreneurs to tell their story in a format bankers love. They can help with the business plan, projections, and assumptions, and turn it around in as little as 4 business days. Just yesterday, I had an ITL deal come across my desk, and I sent them straight to Rapid Business Plans because that export business plan is essential to my 90% guarantee, and I want to make sure it's done right. And guess what? The cost can count towards their equity injection because I'm going to build it into the project. It's a no-brainer. Now, I have one last tip. If you don't do startups, well, now you do. Feasibility studies tell you if the borrower's business idea is going to work. And in my experience, can give the bank the added comfort needed to get to a yes. And Rapid Business Plans offers these as well. So go to rapidbusinessplans.com and set up a Get Acquainted call. I'll leave a link in the show notes below. Bruce Marks, thank you for coming back to the podcast, man.
Thank you for having me. I appreciate it.
This is great. Well, you were on about a year ago, and it was one of my favorite interviews.
Thank you.
Because you've got 35 years, you're at the top of the industry, you're in your prime, and, you know, talking shop is just one of my favorite things to do, and there's no one better to do it with than you.
Thank you. I appreciate it.
Listen, I'm going to just jump right into it because I've been thinking a lot about the term, and I might be going on a tangent here, but I've been thinking about the term BDO. Business Development Officer. Do you know where this term came from?
Well, the term came from the bank's desire for people to go out and get business. And if you're going to go out and get business, you got to develop it, right? And so the term, in my mind, developed from just the bank's desire. When I started SBA lending, everybody's got a goal. So you got a goal. You got to go out, you got to develop the business, develop the relationship. I think it's probably not common just to SBA. Maybe it's called something a little bit different in other industries, but hey, we're salespeople and we've got to go out and develop leads. We've got to go develop relationships. We have to go develop internal and external relationships. So it's all about developing business.
But how much of your... Because I'm trying to figure out if that is an outdated term in today's environment. Because I know it was big in, late 90s, early 2000s, CIT era, BDOs all over the country. I know that's probably where it became really popular. And then those people went on to start shops. And then when they have to hire people, they're going to call them what they were, BDOs. But I'm just wondering, how much of your time in a week is doing what you just said, going out, getting leads, developing business, things like that?
A lot of it, but it's not actually in the way that I go out and develop business might be different than the way you go out and develop business, and it's certainly different than the way the BDOs that report to me go out and develop business. So I think it's super important to define what your target market is and then how to reach that. So let's just say you're a BDO and you're working in the business brokerage community. And so your target market is business brokers. That's who you're going to go after. I have one BDO that reports to me, and he's specializing in the manufacturing and ITL space. So when he goes out and he develops business, he's going to manufacturing association meetings. He's he's driving business from manufacturing magazines, all manufacturing, working with the SBA in their ITL office, and working with a lot of different SBA offices. So I think it really depends upon when you say how much of your work. So for me, I guess X now is my major source of business. And so for me, my concentration of work is on the weekends when I do War Story Saturday. So I spend literally, Ray, all weekend on what was known as Twitter, but is now known as X.
Yeah, rest in peace.
Yeah, rest in peace.
So, well, you just that's an amazing statement, because you have been doing this for 35 years and you've only been doing Twitter for less than one, right? And
a little bit over one. Right?
One, okay.
Yeah.
And I've watched you, because I also got there recently, and I just watched you just soar right over me on the follower count, which is 100%, I feel like, warranted, because you have all of this experience that you put out there, and you've accumulated a bunch of followers, and you're getting business from it.
Yeah, a lot of business from it.
I mean, and I'm seeing people now come in one by one and like figure this out. It was really a hidden kind of gem there for a while.
It is. Yeah, I agree. And it wasn't even, I closed a loan for 2 searchers. They suggested I get on. It wasn't even my idea. And, the rest is history. So for me, providing value.
Exactly what I was just about to say.
Is what it's all about. It's not about me. It's just about providing value to the audience. And then if they choose to follow you, great. And it's awesome to get the DMs and get the feedback. And that keeps you doing what you're doing to drive and continue to provide value. And people find that. It's interesting because I see people making certain posts and they're talking about what they're doing and how well they're doing and what's happening and how many loans they're closing and things of this nature. And you get very little, right? There's very little interaction. But if you post something that is relative to them, it gets a large audience and a lot of looks and a lot of likes and cheers, and that's how you get followers.
And the concept of what you're doing, it's not foreign. It's just a new medium to do it in that's been really effective, because you're, like you said, you're providing valuable information to your target audience, and you're just leading with that. And I don't know that you've asked for business once.
No, I've never asked anybody to follow me. I've never asked for business.
But you've gotten business.
I would tell you now 95% of my business comes from X-Twitter. I don't know what to call it.
Were they the same people that were working with you anyway, and you just weren't there, or is it a whole new batch of people for you to be working with?
Yeah, because it's the borrowers directly. Like before, when you were a business development officer, like I said, if you were working in the business acquisition space, you were typically going out to work with business brokers. You're calling on business brokers. Do you have any deals? What are you selling? Can I give you a pre-qual? Then hopefully they share that with the client that might be interested. But then that client says, oh, I already have a lender, I'm working with. And so if that's your model, that's your model. And that was my model. Mm-hmm. But it's now changed, and it's now the client directly. It's the searchers themselves that reach out and say, I'm interested. I'm ready to submit an LOI. I'd like to talk to you about this potential transaction. So you're dealing with the end user versus the middleman, so to speak.
Well, you're filling the void of why exactly they're on Twitter. They are looking for that information, and you're giving it to them. Yeah. And you build that trust. And I see it too, because people reach out to me via all my different social media channels. And when we go to talk, they already know me.
Right.
I've already built the trust with them. And you're starting off from a totally different standpoint versus getting an intro from a business broker, getting on a call and talking to someone for the first time.
Yep.
They have no idea who you are.
Right.
That's another reason why it's very powerful. And I know, like, on there, you tweet. I've seen you tweet X. this is going to kill me.
Yeah, I know. I'm not sure what to call it.
But many times about how, you focus on the entrepreneur. This is not for you. But, and our audience here is SBA lenders, and a lot of BDOs care about getting to the next level for themselves, and they want to hear ways to do that. And you're there, and I want to talk a little bit about where you're at production-wise in a little, but why do you think it's important to make that distinction all the time about how it's them and not you?
Well, ultimately, that's what they care about it, right? Like, so with me, what's in it for me? So when you look at that acronym, that's really what they want to know. When they call and they say, hey, I'm speaking with 2 or 3 different lenders, right? They call you, they call me, they call several other BDOs. They're trying to make a decision on who they feel they can work with best, but ultimately, who can get their deal done?
But don't you have to talk yourself up to show them, like, I've done X amount of deals, and don't you have to do that to try to?
So here's a little tidbit of information that might help BDOs. Ask them. This is what I do. What are the 3 most important things to you in making your decision on who you choose? And I ask them. If they tell me it's rate, number 1, certainty to close, speed, you get all different kinds of answers. An interesting one is, well, I don't want to work with the lender who sells the loan, which is an interesting one because that, I think, maybe stems from the mortgage brokerage industry where, they get a loan from somebody, the loan is sold, and now they're dealing with somebody else for the servicing. And then you have to explain to them that, that's not going to happen even whether we sell the loan or we don't. They're going to deal with the bank that makes the loan, right? So I like to ask them what's important to them so I can deliver what they want. And maybe I can, and maybe I can't. But I've got a lot of times they'll ask, well, I want to talk to you about this deal and see if it's a fit for you. I'm sure you get that question a lot, right? Is it a fit for you? What they're asking for is, will you, and hopefully you will, do my deal? Really. So it's about them. And if you make it about them, for me, at least in my thought process, it will be an easier, quote unquote, sell.
Yeah, and I agree. It's almost along the same lines too, and maybe it's a little different, but like when you are talking to someone in general, if you're doing most of the talking, the other person's going to leave that conversation feeling like, wow, that person talked a lot. But if you do 30% or less of the talking, like you come out of that and you're like, oh, that was a great conversation, and I talked a lot. The customer might say that, and it's like, okay, they listened to me and they heard me, and that to me is an important part of the selling process, because if they can't, everything there's nothing you can say, and if you say too much, it's just going to all flush out because there's so much really that you need to absorb, and it's impossible if you're just kind of like vomiting information at them.
Yeah.
Like most of you, I use outside counsel to close my SBA loans. And when you bring in outside counsel, they become a critical part of the process. So you can't just bring in a firm that dabbles in SBA. You need a firm that focuses in it. Lewis Kappas is one of those firms. Lewis Kappas is a nationwide specialty law firm with decades of SBA experience that can help lenders navigate SBA compliance in the modern landscape. Look, SBA lending is complex and riddled with gray area. You need counsel that can provide clear advice so that you, as the lender, can make an informed decision. You can't just send every deal GP. But compliance is just the baseline. Communication and customer service is also critical, and that's where Lewis Kappas shines. Their SBA team is experienced, professional, and understands not only the legal side, but that these are real-life transactions for real people. So check them out, follow them on LinkedIn, Lewis Kappas, or go to lewiskappas.com. Last time on the interview that we did, you had said you're talking to these folks and working with them for a long time, pre-LOI even.
Yes.
I would really like you, and maybe it's proprietary so you won't tell me, but I would really like to understand, like be a fly on the wall, someone you've been working with, there is a deal either about to go under LOI or under LOI, but you've just received the financials. You know the buyer, and you review the financials, and then what do? You get on a call with them to talk through it? Is that your next step? I want to understand your process and understand what happens in that initial call where you're basically saying the famous words, this deal doesn't work,
Yeah.
or it does.
Right. Yeah. Congratulations. You structured a deal that doesn't work, which happens a lot. And I'm happy to share, by the way, because this is,
Thank you.
I'm not, no holds bar. I'm not holding any secrets in. So generally for me, what happens in my life is that people reach out to me through Twitter or X, whatever you want to call it. I send them a Calendly link and they'll book a time. And so we do everything. My day is a lot of video conference calls. And we'll get on the call with the client and maybe they have a deal, maybe they don't. A lot of the times they don't. They want to know, well, we want to know what you like, what you don't like, what your bank likes, what your bank doesn't like. We have some questions. We want to just know, what kind of deals you'd like to do. What's your debt service coverage ratio? They ask all the standard questions, right, that all the BDOs are getting. And for me, I always tell them it starts with the business and the business model. And I get really granular about that. Because if somebody called me up today and said, hey, Bruce, I have a deal and I'm about to sign an LOI and the business is a light manufacturing business. Okay, what do they manufacture? Kayaks. The conversation is over. It's done. I'm going to say, hey, let me refer you to a couple of people that I know that might be able to help you. That conversation is 6 seconds and we're done.
Because it's not a need business.
Correct, because it's not a need
I'm a
business.
student.
Yep, I love that. Thank you. I love that. Thank you.
I listen.
Yeah, evidently. Well, that's why you're so successful. Hey, that's why you're driving a Corvette and I'm not.
Yeah, right.
Yeah, for everybody who go on and check out Ray backing up into his driveway in his gorgeous new blue Corvette. It's awesome.
It's a loaner.
Yeah, I'm so happy for you. So proud of you. But right, like that conversation is over right then and there. So for me, I want to get really granular about the business model, why it exists, why it will be around 3, 5, arguably 7, 10 years from now, right? If they're getting a 10-year SBA loan. How does the business make money? And I'll talk with the clients about that so they get an idea of the type of businesses that at least our bank and really me will consider.
Yeah, because would your bank really not do any sort of, or is that more you?
Yeah, so I think, as a BDO, and you know this, if a client calls you and he presents a deal that for whatever reason you're not a fan of and you say no, that's where it stops. You're making that decision. It's not the bank. The bank may like it, and I tell my clients that all the time. The bank may like this deal, but they're never going to see it because I don't. So you have to empower yourself to determine what deals go to loan committee or what deals go up to the credit officer for their approval. And I think that there has to be a really strong communication between the BDO and the chief credit officer, if that's who's approving the majority of your deals, on the type of deals that you like, the type of deals that they like, why you like it, why they like it. And there has to really be a really strong internal communications between the two so that when you do send up a deal, the only thing that's going to happen is it's going to get done.
Can we break that down a little bit further? Because what I'm hearing is you're turning away deals you can, if you wanted to, get done at your bank. Why?
For me, it's not about getting a deal done. And I tell my clients this all the time. Well, they're not clients, but potential prospects. Just because I don't like the deal or it's not a fit for me doesn't mean it's not a good SBA loan. It might be an excellent SBA loan, just not for me. So I'm making that decision on behalf of the bank because for me, I never want to be in a position where it doesn't work out for a small business owner. I don't want him to ever be into default. I don't want to ever not be comfortable putting my head on a pillow at night. And so I always explain to my BDOs, whenever a deal comes in, there's 3 questions that I always ask. Every deal. Is this a good deal for the bank? And is this a good deal for me? And is this a deal that I'm proud to say I made? And if I can't answer yes, 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 I don't.
So to put this into context of a BDO trying to get to your level, do you think positioning yourself as a credit officer in the field, essentially, who is in some respects more conservative than technically what the bank will do if you push the limits, but you say, you know, I'm gonna just do what I feel is right, and maybe there's some deals that come across my desk that I can do, but I'm not going to because I want to be able to have that credibility with my credit so that when they're getting a deal to them, they know it's the cream of the crop, which is another phrase you've said.
Yeah. Well, I call it BDO reputational risk,
Hmm.
right? And it's internal as well as external. For example, I tell my team that your write-ups, your credit write-ups, your packaging has got to be the best, because otherwise you get a reputation inside the bank of, oh God, another deal from Bruce Marks, right? Like that's not what you want to have happen. You want to have, oh, another deal from Bruce. This I'm sure is an excellent deal. So as a BDO, you know, it's kind of like if you put in bad information, you're going to get out bad information in anything you do. So if you put together a bad package or you put together a bad write-up, well, that's the reputation. And that carries with you, because if I'm working, let's say, with you, Ray, and you're a really good BDO, and I leave and I go to another shop, and you know it's a very small world in the SBA business, right? Because people tend to work with people somewhere along the line at some point in time, right, with the same people. And if I'm working with a BDO and he has a bad internal reputation, and then I leave and he applies for a job at that bank, what do you think I'm going to say when they ask me, how is this BDO?
Yeah.
So that BDO, I talk about it with my team all the time. BDO reputational risk is real, both internal and external.
Yeah. So you're basically putting in the extra work to really know your deal.
Yes.
And what I hear from some BDOs is, I don't have time to do that because I have so many deals. So what do you say to that?
How many of your so many deals are getting done? Like, to me, I look at it and I say, if I do one $5 million deal a month, that's good. I'm happy with that. If I do two $3 million deals a month, I'm happy with that. So for me, it's quality over quantity. And I'm selective in the deals that I do because I get to see a lot. But there's so much business out there. I imagine there's a lot of BDOs on your podcast or listening that get to see a lot. But you can't do every deal. So I don't try to do every deal. I just try to do the deals that I think are good for the bank. They're good for me, and I'm proud to say I made.
So one of the keys is saying no to the stuff you can't do and shouldn't do as quickly as possible. Get that off your plate. Make room for actually being able to know your deal. Now, you do larger deals than anybody that I know, which that's so a benefit of that is being able to put more time into and hit bigger numbers. Mm-hmm. Can you give us an idea for like how much production that you've done like so far this year, just to kind of frame this conversation? Because you're giving all this good information. We want to make sure you're the real deal, Bruce.
Yeah, thanks. So last year I had 91 million approved, and I closed 59,625. Because deals, even though you get them approved and they're in the closing, doesn't mean they're going to hit the closing table, because deals blow up.
Especially the bigger ones.
Especially the bigger ones. There's risk in that, right? There's a lot of risk in that. So right now, as of August, approved and in closing at about 46 million, and I've got about another 20 that I'm working on right now. So 66 for the first, whatever.
All right. So in other words, a lot.
A lot, but I'm not overwhelmed.
Yeah.
I'm not overwhelmed, because to me, and I've talked about this in the past, the power of saying no. If somebody calls me up and says, I've got a great real estate deal, I'm not doing that deal. I'm not. I don't care how great it is. I'm just not going to do it.
No, it makes sense. I mean, so the production number is large, relatively speaking, because most BDOs are hired to do like 15 million or something like that.
Yeah,
And
I would say 12 to 15 million is probably the industry standard. Like my team, I have some guys that are at 12, and I have some guys, where their goal is 15. But I would say the majority of, when I look internally in our bank, I would say the majority of our BDOs, their goal is 12 million a year.
When a lot of people struggle to get there, meanwhile you're doing 5x that number.
Mm-hmm.
That's been the key, I feel like, at the heart of what I've been trying to figure out in this podcast, because I just feel like it's possible to do it, because I've seen where
you've done it,
and I've seen
and you've
where
done it. You're a proven success. So,
and we're not gonna. Let me just ask you this:
Ask me anything.
Do you need something that you're born with in order to get to that level? The internal desire to want to get there and to put in the work to get there, is that something you can even go get, or do you have to have it? That's a big question.
Yeah, it's a big question, and I think I know the answer. I think your lifestyle and where you are in your life definitely matters. You're a young stud. You got kids, right? And your kids are going to get older, and then they're going to say, Dad, I need to go to the soccer field, or I need to go to the baseball field. If you have a daughter, I need to go to dance camp. I need you to do this. And so when you're a parent and you're raising children, there's only so many hours in a day.
Yeah.
And so you have to it's a balancing act when you have a family and you have children and maybe you have parents that maybe need some assistance or whatever.
Right.
You're going to have to utilize your time and make the best use of your time. And I see it because I see it in the BDOs that work where they're going, yeah, I can't be on a call at 2 because I've got to go pick up my kid. And in today's business, it's different where everything is remote. When I was younger and working in a bank, and you literally would go to a bank and go to work, and you weren't doing deals in California because you were only doing deals in Florida because that's where your bank wanted you to do your deals. It's a lot different today in today's world, in today's work world, than it was when I was a younger BDO. So I think that there's a lot of external distractions that come as a result of it. So I don't think it's just the desire. Everybody, I think, that's in this space wants to do well, right? They want to do well.
Yeah.
They want to be successful. They want to be able to go out and have the nice things that being successful provides you. But I just think that life happens and life matters.
Yeah. I couldn't agree more, actually, because the first 11 years I was doing this, I was 22 to 33 and had no kids. And so my top priority was being the best BDO I could possibly be. And, family and relationships and that stuff too. But I was really focused every day from the time I woke up to the time I went to bed. In my head, I'm thinking SBA, SBA, SBA. And it was almost a sickness, honestly, until my daughter was born. In the last 6 months, I've been phoning it in. I'm just going to be honest.
Right.
I'm back now on the grind because I just looked up how much college costs. But I agree with you because that was my edge. I didn't have all these other things to distract me, and now I do. So people are probably coming after me now.
And then when you get in my age category where your kids are grown and it's just your wife and you, and she's out doing all her things, you now have the time to devote back to doing this. So yes, I'm the most successful I've ever been, but like you look at for your first 10 or 11 years, that's what happens. And really what happens at this age, you become the best at what it is that you do because you've got 30, 35 years of experience and you've figured it out. And you've got 35 years or 37, whatever the case may be, of your name in that industry. And you've known people for a real, real long time. And reputation is earned. It's not given. And what do you want that reputation to be? And that is, and I tell this, and I probably maybe even said this on the last paragraph. There is one thing that you take with you to the grave, unfortunately, because everybody's going to die. That's the unfortunate part. But the one thing that you're taking is your reputation. And how do you want that to read at the end of your life? So to me, that's super important. And I don't want to ever make it about me, because if I make it about my customers and my clients and I make it about them, in my mind, that's how you drive business.
I hear you on that, and I agree with that. So you have this desire to wake up in the morning and do what you do, and I think it's because knowing you, it's because you love what you do.
Correct.
So if you were going to hire another BDO, how do you interview for that? I mean, it's a crazy position, the BDO, and I want to circle back to what the actual position is. But let me just ask you, like, how do you hire a BDO? What do you look for? What do you ask them?
So the first question I ask them is, talk to me about deals you wouldn't do.
Huh. That's unique.
Yeah. That's my first question. And I answered that very quickly because that's the first question I do ask. Tell me about deals you wouldn't do. Because then I get a sense of, do they understand credit? Do they understand SBA? Is there a differentiator? Because it's easy to talk about, oh, well, if the bank likes this, I'm going to try to go get that. Or if the bank likes this, I'm going to try to go get that. And I've never done it that way.
Huh.
So that's the first question I ask them.
Have you been able to hire any BDOs with that question?
So
doesn't that disqualify a lot of people?
To be honest, the BDOs that work in my team have all been assigned, but every one of my BDOs went over their goal last year. I'm very proud of that
accomplishment.
Right? And they're doing awesome this year. And I have regular meetings once a month as a team, but I will set up a call every other week with younger BDOs and say, I'm going to provide you an hour and a half of training. So if you're working for me, you're going to get 3 hours of training direct every month, as long as you want. I'm not a micromanager, but I'm here to help you. And if I can help you, I'm going to. But that's your choice. Either you want it or you don't. So as they're growing, I'm training them from, soups to nuts to get them and provide them for whatever they want and whatever they feel they need.
So if I answered that question with stuff that is like ineligible, let's say, ineligible type of situations where obviously I wouldn't do those deals, would that be, how would you grade that type of response?
Not very good. Good, you know the SBA SOP, and you know what deals aren't eligible, but that doesn't mean you know. To me, it's where they say, these are the kind of deals I don't like and why.
So that you've now determined they have their own credit philosophy, essentially.
That's right.
And so that's cool. Okay.
Yeah, and they might say, and I did this actually with one of my BDOs. I like to role play, where if a BDO has a situation, I take the role of the customer and I just drive. Well, why does it have to be like that? I mean, just really getting deep into it so that they learn, right? So if I come into them and say, well, what's your debt service minimum? Are you going to quote me, well, it's got to be 1.15 historic from the SBA? Is that what you're going to give me? And why? So I'm going to get really granular, just like I get really granular on the deals that I look at, and then determine, if it's a good deal and I like it, or if that BDO really understands what it takes to be a BDO. I don't, the old model, we talked about this.
That's what I want to come back to that.
Yeah, right. The old model of the BDO was just, go out
and find business.
Go out and find business. And throw it against the wall and hope it sticks. That's not
today's model.
That's not today, and nor should it be.
So that's what I wanted to get into. Like, what is today's BDO job description? Like, what are you actually doing as a effective BDO other than finding the business?
Yeah. It's understanding good business and understanding if it's a good deal for your bank, if it's a good deal for you and a good deal, you say, hey, I'm proud I made this deal, right? So you have to, that's what it takes to get that deal to the closing table. Because I think, when I look at this, Ray, for me, when I look back and I look at my career, the thing that I'm probably the most proud of is during 2020 and 2021, I never did one PPP loan. And I told the bank. And everybody in our bank was working day and night on PPP loans, literally, like most people that were in the SBA business back then. And I said to them, when a client calls me and asks me for one, I will do it. And
But none of them did.
But none of them did. So I look back at that and I look at the strength of the portfolio, my portfolio, the quality of the portfolio, how the portfolio is doing, To me, that's most important. That means I've made the right bet on the right deal to the right people. And to me, that's more important than whether I did another deal and I got paid on it. And you're right. I'm fortunate because I get to, at this point in my career, get up and go to work because I want to, not because I have to. I don't have to work anymore. But I can't see myself slowing down, and my desire is there every day to help as many people as I can in that next succession of business ownership life.
It's not work if you love what you do, right?
Right.
Isn't that what they say?
Yeah.
Well, do you think a BDO should be graded on their portfolio's health?
I absolutely do.
Even though the credit people are the ones approving it and the committees and whatnot?
So for me, and this is what I say, it's what I believe, it's my decision. I make the calls. It's my credit decisions, and I will stand by them. I know my underwriter always teases me, we're batting 1,000. He always says that. We're batting 1,000. I've not had a loan declined at First Bank of the Lake on any deals I've ever presented. I've not had one loan declined. And I take that very seriously, and I'm proud to say that because, again, I'm proud to say...
That's a big accomplishment.
Yeah, but it's betting on the right people, buying the right businesses with the right cash flow, right? I call it the 3 Gs of a good deal. Lending to good people, buying good businesses with good, strong cash flow. And if I just stay on that track and I'm doing it right, everybody wins.
Yeah. I mean, it's like your success, I can see it's just this perfect combination of all these different factors coming together to create what you're doing. And it's very intentional. And the takeaway for me is, as a BDO, when you have the information on the business, stop and make a credit decision yourself. Don't just keep going with the process and then just package up and put it in front of whoever you need to put it in front of for them to make a credit decision.
Yeah. I know when I submit a deal, it's getting done.
And that goes to the certainty in the initial conversations.
Yeah, certainty to close.
So BDO, they need to basically be a credit expert. They need to be an SBA. They need to be an expert. And now you're going out to market with your value proposition, whatever it may be. Mm-hmm. And then a significant portion of your job is structuring, advising, knowing how to form relationships internally, getting the deal done to the closing table. So is the phrase business development officer, does it still match today's role? Because if I'm the person and I am the expert on everything from finding the customer to making sure we have a deal that can close, shouldn't we rename that?
If you want, I'm okay with that. I'm okay with that. Yeah, I mean, you have to have all facets, I believe, and it's changing, right? It's like we talked about, before. It's changing. So it's a big role. It's a big role to be, and that's why it's not easy to be a really super successful BDO. It's just because we've seen it. You've been doing this for how long now? 13, 14 years?
I think 12 years.
12 years. You look back at the people that have come in and out of your life. How many BDOs have you worked with that have done really, really well, and how many have not? They just, and you see kind of a revolving door. Like at First Bank of the Lake, I mean, I can think of maybe 10 or 12 people that, have come and gone inside First Bank of the Lake that were BDOs that were hired and that just unfortunately weren't able to make it because they weren't.
Yeah.
What we always talk about is in this role, you have a number.
Right.
If you hit it, you get to stay. If you don't,
Yep.
you don't.
Yep.
I'm assuming it's the same
Yep.
for your shop, right?
Absolutely.
Yeah. So, and if everybody was hitting it, I guess it'd be a ton of super, super successful. But, we talk about it. You have some that are at the top, some that are at the middle, and then, some that are at the bottom. It's not an easy job. If somebody were coming into this world and said, hey, should I become a BDO? You've got to have a stomach for volatility. You have to have a stomach for, you might only be at a job for 2 years. And that may not be any fault of your own. They come in. If First Bank of the Lake comes in and says tomorrow, well, we don't want to do large business acquisition transactions anymore, I'm done.
Yeah.
Because that's all I do.
What's the upside of being a BDO, though? And I'm not talking about, monetary, everyone knows there's upside in getting commission on how much production you do. But when I look at folks, even like in the searcher community, these people are coming out of private equity and investment banking and things like that.
Mm-hmm.
And that's where a lot of people think to go after college. But should they be looking at the BDO role? I feel like it's a great role.
It is a great role.
Why?
Well, flexibility, I think, is a key, right? Like you make your own hours. You want to work at 7 to 9 at night, you can do it. You want to work from 7 to 5, you can do it. You want to work from 12 to 5, you can do it. My day starts on the tennis court every day. That's what I do. I'm not in the office, right? So I make my own hours. So from that perspective, it's really good. I think from, obviously, monetarily, it can be really, really good. But there's all facets of SBA. Like you said, you're going to have your loan closer come in. You have your underwriters. You have servicing people. You have people that are in liquidation. You have people that are in portfolio management. You have all aspects of the SBA world. If a person sees a successful BDO and they see how much money they're making, they go, oh my God, we want to be like them. But there's a lot of work and a ton of time that goes into being a successful BDO. So I think, when you look at it, it's certainly a respectful position, I would say.
I would say so.
Right? You would say that. I'm never shy to say what it is that I do.
Yeah.
I think flexibility, I think monetarily. And the thing I love about it the most is every day it's different. It's different. And you get to, I like to say, I've learned a lot. I've learned a little about a lot.
Yeah.
Like I know a lot about a lot of different industries. And I feel like I have a lot that I can add. Because I'm sure you get it. Well, Ray, how many times have you lent into this type of business? And can you share with me your experience? And can you talk to me? And these people are coming to you for advice. And so they're really looking for you. And the thing that I would tell you, the key for me is it's impactful.
Mm-hmm.
You're
making a difference.
You are making a difference. When I look at closing over 1,300 SBA loans during my career, that's a lot of people that I've helped.
Yeah.
And to me, impactful is the key word because I know I've made a difference in a lot of people's lives.
I think you nailed it. I think I've been thinking this for years. I mean, the idea, we used to be able to work from home before work from home was cool.
Right.
That in and of itself was a pretty good perk.
Yeah.
The downside is I remember being 23 and I'm a 7A BDO for under a year now, and I have zero book of business. All I have is a cell phone and a laptop, and all your entire 8-hour day is prospecting to start. And so when I'm working from home, I mean, you need some discipline. You really need some discipline because you can easily watch TV and not do business development. But obviously then that doesn't get you on the path where you need to go.
So here's something I would love your audience, with your BDOs, if you're going to take away anything from this podcast, this is what I would love for them to take away. What did I do today to drive business? If you just write that on a piece of paper and you put it on your mirror where you're brushing your teeth to go to bed, and you look at that, that can be impactful. What did I do today to drive business? Because it's not going to come in unless you make it come in. You're going to be rewarded for your efforts. People are not just going to pick up the phone as a BDO that's growing in this market and call you. And when they do, you better be able to have your 7-second elevator speech that differentiates you from the next guy. But I talk about that all the time with my team. What did you do today to drive business?
Yeah, well, and you said that on the last time. And the thing is, the information's out there now. It wasn't out there specifically for a BDO on how to be successful. I've interviewed some of the top BDOs all over the country, and the information's now out there. And you are so generous with your information. You put it all out there. You don't hold back, and it's part of this whole idea of giving value and not expecting anything in return. But it works out somehow.
Right.
Last time you were here, we were joking about, maybe we should write a book. Maybe you should write a book. Maybe I should write it. Would you co-authored a book?
So yeah. So what happened was I got some gentleman reached out to me. Hey, we're putting a book together. The principal in the book is a guy named Jack Canfield, who had a very famous book, at least famous one. I was in my younger days, called Chicken Soup for the Soul. And so it's a series. Well, it's 15 to 17, maybe 20 co-authors of this, and everybody wrote a chapter in the book and talked about what has made them successful and how being authentic and the way that they drive business. So it's a business book made up of really super successful people that has been put together, and it's really a good book. It really is. The first day that it came out on Amazon, it sold out.
What's it called?
It's called The Keys to Authenticity.
I like that. I mean, that's perfect for you.
Yeah, that's why I loved it when they said this is the book, and
we got the guy.
And it's been great, and it's done really, really well. And it's
I can't get a copy.
I will get you a copy. I promise. Signed.
That's going right on the bookshelf.
Yeah,
right?
right on
All in the back of all my Zoom calls, people are going to see that.
Okay, that's good.
Listen,
that's good.
We're running up on time. I just want to ask you, being in here 35 years, and I don't see you slowing down really anytime soon. But I just want to ask the question because I think about it sometimes, not a lot, but do you ever think about legacy?
Yes. Yeah, I do. Ooh. I do. I think, when you've been doing it this long and you have a lot to give, and it doesn't make sense to just take it with you. So I want to give back as much as I can because I've had so many great mentors and folks that have helped me get to where I am. And that's why I love sharing.
Yeah. Yeah, because it's if, like you said, you don't need to work. So you have to have a why behind what you're doing every day.
Right.
And it would be a shame if you kept all that information in your head to yourself.
Yeah. No, you want to give back. I love when, and I've seen you do it, and I'm very flattered when you do is maybe quote or say things.
Yeah.
It's meaningful. It's meaningful. And I think that's, again, being impactful.
Yeah. I feel like being recognized by your colleagues is one of the biggest rewards you can get. And I just wish I had a huge trophy here to give you, because you're going down in the BDO Hall of Fame, and it is a thing we're going to be doing at some point, because you're putting up the numbers and you're doing it the right way. You're humble about it, and everyone just speaks very highly of you. So
Thank you.
that's all that really matters. So Bruce, thank you for joining again on The Art of SBA Lending. It was a pleasure.
And it's a pleasure to be here, and I'm happy to support the art of SBA lending.
I appreciate that. Thank you.
All right, Ray. Thank you.
All right, that's it for this week. Don't forget to subscribe to the podcast so you never miss an episode of The Art of SBA Lending. And if you have any feedback or suggestions, email me at ray@artofsba.com. Until next time, ta-ta.